All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Adam, and I'll be your moderator. Chloe Hiranaka is stepping in for Philip Curtis last minute here today, so we appreciate her hopping on for us. Chloe works for Unitas Dental, and she will be discussing how to increase your PPO reimbursements in 2022. If anyone has any questions, please add them to the Q&A section, and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. And Henry Schein is not offering CE credit for viewing or attending this presentation, live or on demand. Chloe, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Adam, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to be on the webinar today. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your time. And today, just like Adam said, we're going to be talking about how to increase your PPO reimbursements in 2022. So hopefully we're going to give you lots of great tips and tricks on how you can start negotiations for your practice and make your practice more revenue. Just a little bit, again, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Chloe Hiranaka, and I do sales and marketing here at Unitas Dental, and that is my email. So I'll give you my contact information again at the end of the meeting, but if you do have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, and I would be more than happy to assist in getting those answered for you. So just a little bit of background on our company. We have been doing this since 2011. We have been in the PPO management industry. We have worked with thousands of practices all across the United States. We've had clients in every state, including Alaska and Hawaii. So we know that our process and framework can work no matter where you're located. We currently have over 1,200 active dental practices that we represent. We are based out of Mesa, Arizona, and we make up a team of over 65 insurance experts here to assist with all of your PPO related needs. So some of the key PPO strategies we're going to be covering today are how you can understand your PPO participation and current reimbursements. That's definitely key when it comes to negotiations. The next thing is our top PPO negotiation tactics. So we're going to be going over specific strategies for you to use when negotiating. And the next thing we're going to want to go over is how to maximize your negotiation opportunities. So what's super nice is this is going to be a lot of information, so hopefully you can take some notes. I definitely encourage you to write some things down that stand out to you or that you might have questions on. Like Adam said, at the end of this, we're going to be doing some Q&A, so hopefully I can get some of those questions answered. But if there's anything I missed, please make sure you reach out after the webinar, and I would be more than happy to get those specific questions answered for you. But what's really nice is we have compiled a PPO negotiation quick start guide for you. So you can actually download this right now and kind of follow along as we go through everything, and then also have it as a reference after this presentation. So it's just at www.ppoguide.com, and it is a step-by-step breakdown of our exact PPO negotiation framework that we're going to be covering today. So the first key to understanding your PPO participation and current reimbursements is that you're going to want to discover and map out all of your current PPO participation. You're going to want to receive and document all of your actual fee schedule reimbursements. And then you're going to want to compare and repair your UCR versus reimbursement discrepancies. So we're going to go through each one of these items. And this is essentially your first step or key to negotiating your PPO contracts. So for discovering and mapping out your PPO participation, there are really some key things you need to understand. So first is the different participation types. So some offices are a little bit more familiar with this than others, but we're going to go through this in more detail. But there's really 3 different ways you could be in network with an insurance company. You could be directly contracted, you could be in network through another insurance, or you can be in network through an umbrella company. So we're going to go over that next, but what you really need to understand here is that when you are confirming how you're in network, you want to verify which participation type you are. So you're going to reach out to provider relations and you're going to confirm the participation for each doctor and for each location. So there can be discrepancies between different providers at a single practice and at different locations. So even if you think, oh, all the doctors are under the same tax ID number, or they're all at the same location, or the locations are under the same tax ID number, you want to be very specific with verifying each of these things. So you're going to contact provider relations, and a big bonus to this webinar is we're actually going to give you a contact list of provider relation numbers at the end. But you're going to want to reach out to them and you're going to want to ask them these specific questions. And you're also going to want to have a spreadsheet ready to go of how you can collect this information. What I would recommend is you use Excel or Google Sheets and you just list out in the first column all the different insurance companies. And then in the next column at the top, you would put the provider's name. And then if you had multiple providers, you can do the different columns, one for each provider, and then just go through each row, which would be each different insurance company, and mark what participation type they are. So when you call, you're going to say, how is this provider in network or participating with you? And a lot of times when you call provider relations, they're going to say, okay, yes, that doctor is in network. But that's not really a sufficient answer. We need to know, again, exactly how they are in network participating. So you'll say, okay, are they direct or are they in network through another company? If the representative says that the provider is direct, then that is going to prompt you to ask these next two questions. You're going to want to verify the effective date, meaning when the provider became credentialed with the insurance company. And then you're also going to request for them to send you a copy of their current fee schedule. If their answer to what participation type the doctor is that they're in network through another company, you're going to want to verify which specific company they're through. And then typically the representative will refer you to reach out to that company for the fee schedule, since that's the fee schedule you would be utilizing. Occasionally they'll give you the effective date, or you could ask for the effective date of when they began participating through that other company. Sometimes the provider relations won't give you that information. They'll just tell you to refer back to the company that you are directly contracted with. So to go over the different participation types so that you can have a little bit better understanding of that, the first one again is that direct contract. So this is the most straightforward relationship that most offices and doctors are familiar with. You would have directly credentialed with this insurance company. So now when those patients come into your practice, you're in network, you submit the claims to that company, and you're reimbursed on that fee schedule. The second participation type is the PPO to PPO leasing. So this is where it does start to get a little bit more confusing, just because this typically isn't the arrangement that doctors sign up for or necessarily agree to. It just kind of happens to you automatically, but it's very, very common. That's when you would have directly contracted or credentialed with this insurance company, and then they automatically lease you out to this insurance company, or sometimes they'll lease you out to several. So now when these insurance patients come into your practice, you're considered a network. So you submit the claim for them and you still submit it to their insurance company. And the payment actually still comes from that insurance company as well, but you're actually getting reimbursed on this company's fee schedule. So a really common example of this I like to use is Aetna. A lot of times providers will directly contract with them, and then Aetna will actually lease you out to several different insurances: Guardian, Emeritus, Principal. Another example of this is Emeritus. They'll lease you out to Principal and vice versa. So tons of the insurance companies have this type of relationship. The third participation type is the umbrella networks. So very similar. There's really 4 major umbrella networks: Dynamax, Connection, Carrington, and the Zealous Mavericks network. If you're West Coast, First Dental Health is another major one. If you're East Coast, Premier Dental Group is another umbrella network. So through the umbrellas, they're called that because you access tons of insurance companies through them. So the provider becomes directly contracted, and now through that umbrella network, they're seeing all these different insurances. When those patients come in, you're paid on that umbrella network's fee schedule that you are contracted with. So that's why it's super, super crucial to understand exactly how you participate, because that's ultimately going to tell us what needs to be done in order to negotiate or optimize. So just like an x-ray with a patient, you have to have that full picture back in order to know what needs to be done or what your solution is going to be. So then that brings us to receiving and documenting your actual fee schedule reimbursements. So like we mentioned, you're going to want to call provider relations, or sometimes you can go through your online provider portal. Sometimes you can email them for your fee schedule, your current fee schedule. For each company, it kind of varies. But again, you're going to want to make sure that you get that fee schedule for each doctor and for each location so that you can see if there's any discrepancies there. And then, of course, once you get those updated copies, you're going to want to update your Dentrix or whatever practice management software you use with those current fee schedules. For comparing and repairing your UCR versus reimbursement discrepancies, you're going to want to pull out your top 20 or top 35 UCRs. Obviously, if you're a specialist, it's going to be a little bit less. And you're going to want to throw those into a spreadsheet. So you're going to want to put in your first column your top procedure codes, and then you're going to want in the next second column to put your UCRs for those procedures. And then for each additional column, you're going to want to put each different insurance company, and then you just plug in your reimbursements that correlate with those top procedure codes. That way you can see a side-by-side comparison of what your UCRs are and then what your reimbursements are. It's super important to pay attention to this because you do not want your UCR to be at or below your highest reimbursing fee schedule. So you need to raise your UCRs if that is the case. When it comes to evaluating your UCRs, I definitely recommend utilizing available percentile-based analysis tools to ensure that your UCRs are competitive for your area, and again, above your highest reimbursing fee schedule. So for our clients, when we do this for them, it's included in our service. We utilize Henry Schein's market analysis tool, but you can reach out directly to your Henry Schein rep and they can help do this analysis for you. And then the reason we really recommend that is, again, we have seen a correlation between what the insurance companies are willing to negotiate and reimburse you and what your procedures are priced at. So there will always be a discrepancy between what the insurance company is reimbursing you and your UCR, but the closer that they see they're getting to paying you your UCR, or if they're at it or below, of course, they're not going to increase your reimbursement or be incentivized to reimburse because they think that they're paying you really well. So that's why you want to keep it high and competitive there. And we recommend you do that before negotiations. So for anyone just jumping on and joining, again, I just want to reiterate that we have this PPO negotiation quick start guide. As I'm talking, you can download it and start taking a look at it. You just have to go to www.ppoguide.com. Super awesome. Keep taking notes and writing down questions you have, but know that you do have this as a reference with lots of this information in it and a breakdown of what we're covering today. So now we're kind of on to our second key, or the next topic we're going to be covering, which is negotiation tactics. So now at this point, you have reached out to the insurance companies, you verified exactly what your current situation is, how you're participating, and collected all of your current fee schedules. You've ranked your reimbursements, make sure your UCRs are increased, updated, ready to go. Now we're actually reaching out for negotiations. So 3 things you really want to make sure for actually negotiating is, one, we of course want to ensure that you're not wasting time focusing on the wrong procedures. We're going to go over how you can approach the negotiation process and how to compare your offers that you receive from insurance companies. So in order to ensure that you don't waste time on the wrong procedures, like I mentioned in the previous step, you really want to focus on your top 20 to 35 procedure codes. That's what we recommend, and that's what we look at for our clients. So how you can get your top 35 procedure codes, most doctors kind of have an idea of what that is off the top of their head, but you can actually generate a production summary from your practice management software. You just want to make sure that the report is listed by procedure code, quantity or the frequency of how many times you've done that procedure, and your production, so the revenue generated from that procedure in the last year. So you want to have those 3 items, put it into a spreadsheet. You're all going to be masters at Excel by the end of this. Just kidding. None of it's that hard. Anyone can do it, I promise. But you're going to want to rank it by your highest grossing production. So just rank it by that 3rd column, sort, so that it then ranks it by your top 35. Your highest grossing procedures would be at the top. And then that's going to be your top 35 procedure codes that you use. So you're going to use those when you're looking at your different offers. And then you're also going to use that in the previous step when you're even just looking at what your current reimbursements are. So for reaching out for negotiations, obviously the strategies kind of vary for each company, but for most companies, they will consider negotiations, or you're essentially eligible to renegotiate every 2 to 3 years. So we definitely encourage you to reach out and negotiate, even if it's with a company that you've maybe heard doesn't typically negotiate with, or that you haven't had luck with in the past. Don't give up. Keep reaching out and requesting. And you're going to reach out to provider relations to do that. And you say that you would like to request a fee schedule increase or a fee review. Either of those words would work. And then again, you want to pay attention to your current participation and any of those leasing arrangements. So you only are negotiating with companies that you're directly contracted with, or the main payer. You're not going to go to companies that you're being leased out to get an increase on your current contract, because that's not who the contract's through. For example, if you're in network with Guardian, but you're paid under Aetna's contracted fees, so Aetna is the one you're directly contracted with, you need to go to Aetna to actually increase your fee schedule. Again, this is all going back why it's super important to identify how you're participating first, so that then you're not wasting time and getting confused in this whole negotiation process. For comparing the different offers, again, we're going to want to use those top 35 procedures and go to our trusted spreadsheet, and you're going to want to compare what you're currently being reimbursed by the insurance company to what the increase is. So for this report, what I would recommend is you already have your spreadsheet with your top procedure codes, your UCRs, and then each insurance company you're directly contracted with in each column after that. I would just add another tab, and then on that right-hand side, copy your top codes, and then in the next column, copy your UCRs, and then in the 3rd column, copy what you're currently being reimbursed by the specific PPO you're analyzing, and then in the 4th column, put increase and plug in all those increased codes, or whatever on that fee schedule they're saying your new fee would be. This is super important because for some insurance companies, when they are negotiating with you, they'll give you what they call an alternate fee schedule, and they may decrease some codes and increase others. So obviously, when you're negotiating, a $100 increase could be outweighed by a $5 decrease if it's on a procedure that you're doing all the time. So again, why we focus on those top codes, you don't want to accept an increase. I see it happen to offices all the time who do this on their own, and it's so sad. They quickly glance at a fee schedule, and because they crested an increase, they trust that it is an increase, and they'll just see, oh yeah, a few of these are higher than what we've been getting, sign off on it and submit it. They're locked into that fee schedule, and then as they start getting the Eobs back, they realize, oh my gosh, they actually decreased a lot of my main procedure codes. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. Make sure you're really paying attention closely and that it is a true increase to your office that's going to benefit you. And then, of course, once you do accept an offer, if you do this comparison and you're like, okay, it looks good, we're accepting it, you sign off, you're going to want to audit your Eobs to make sure that you are getting paid on those new reimbursements or that new fee schedule. So for most increases, it usually will take 30 to 90 days at the longest for those fees to go into effect. So you'll just want to make sure that you get the effective date. When you're working with the representative for negotiations, you can ask, okay, when will the effective date be for these new fees? Or they'll tell you, and then just make sure that you have that in your system so that after that date, you're checking the Eobs. If they're processed incorrectly after that date, then you can resubmit them to the insurance company for reprocessing. All right, so we are moving right along here. So now we're going to talk about how you can really maximize your negotiation opportunities. So you want to ensure that your PPO fees are competitive for your area. Of course, you want to minimize optimization risks and maximize benefits. So we're going to start talking a little bit more about optimization. We haven't talked about that yet. And then you, of course, will want to look at what your return on investment is going to be from PPO negotiations. So like I just mentioned, when you negotiate, your new fee schedules are essentially going to be locked in for a minimum of 2 years because you're not eligible to negotiate. You're only eligible to negotiate every 2 years. So don't get locked into a low fee schedule. That's why we recommend you do that analysis on your own. But if you really want to take it a step further to make sure that you really are getting offered the best possible offer and you're maximizing your in-network participation, that's where our company, Unitas, comes in. We've been doing this for many years for thousands of practices. So we have all of the data and experience to really compare your offers and determine how competitive they are for your area. So, we have access to that information and contracts that most practices don't have access to. And also your contractual arrangements with the insurance companies prevent you from sharing that information with each other, right? So, we can come in and look at your offers. We can also negotiate on your behalf for many of the PPOs. And we have so much experience of doing that and know what methods tend to work best and be the most efficient. And we just have a team that does that and also does all of the optimization for you. So for optimization, like I said, that's something we haven't gone into much detail in. Really, it's kind of a whole nother animal, but it's really the way the industry is going. That is where a lot of doctors do see a really big increase in their reimbursements is by shifting some of their participation around. And part of the reason why we didn't go too in depth on it in this particular webinar is just because, in all honesty, I don't really recommend office attempt optimization on their own, just because it is pretty complicated and extremely time consuming. There's a lot of ins and outs to it that you need to be aware of. I like to say that negotiations is almost like pulling a tooth. It's probably better to use a professional to do it for you, but in reality, you could probably do it yourself, figure it out. But optimization is like a root canal. It's a way more complicated. I wouldn't recommend you attempt it on your own, and I wouldn't just go to anyone to do it. But that is, again, the way you can really, really maximize your in-network participation, just because there are, as we went over, different ways you could technically be in network with an insurance company. It does open all these other avenues to getting a higher reimbursement rate. So we can identify which of those arrangements are going to be more profitable for your practice rather than just sole negotiations. And then we know how to implement it for your practice so that we can shift things over and we know risks involved and kind of timing of everything. So that's something that I would say we can definitely help your practice with. So kind of a sneak preview of what optimization looks like is, like we've gone over, you reach out to this insurance company to negotiate your current fee schedule. Then we reach out to this insurance company or whatever company you're being leased out to, and we take it a step further and we negotiate a proposal for you. So you can negotiate contracts as an out of network provider or without being directly contracted with an insurance. So essentially go to them and say, okay, if this provider was to become directly contracted with you instead, what's the highest fee schedule you'd be willing to pay? And a lot of times in these leasing relationships, this insurance company is going to offer you a higher fee schedule than this insurance company because they're already having to pay huge leasing fees to this company to be the middleman. They'd rather just have you as a direct contract and pay you a higher fee schedule. And so we look at that again, we're looking at all the different relationships between the companies and seeing what's going to ultimately pay you the highest reimbursement rate and then implement it. So for calculating your return on investment from negotiations, because we've been doing this so long, we have a way that is pretty quick and easy to project your return on investment or ROI through what our results have been for doing this for so many different doctors, for thousands at this point. So we have this scale here, and we'll usually see for our clients that go through this between negotiations and optimizations, a below average increase that you'll see on your reimbursements would be 4%. The more average increase that we'll see is at least 10%, and above average would be 18% or above. So to actually make these, percentages mean something, the really quick and easy way you can actually project your revenue increase is if you take your annual production before write-offs. So in this example, you'll see we use $1 million, easy math. And then we take your percentage of patients under negotiable PPOs. So you'll see here 50%. Obviously, you could come up with a more accurate number for this as well. 50% is pretty conservative. How we came to that is for most PPO heavy practices, that means like 80 to 90% of their patients are PPO, but we do want to make sure that we exclude delta. So whatever your number is for PPO patients or percentage, just make sure you exclude delta. Just because they don't historically negotiate or optimize, it's pretty unlikely you'll get an increase there. And so that's why we do take off a good 30 to 40% or whatever percent you think that may be. And then that gives you your negotiable production by multiplying those numbers together, which in this case would be $500,000. And then you can just simply multiply it by that scale. So at the below average 4% increase, that would be a $20,000 revenue increase. At our average 10%, that would be a $50,000 revenue increase. And at the above average 18%, that would be a $90,000 revenue increase. So really good ROI. I think you'll see, even going through this negotiation process on your own, that just a few simple negotiations and optimization really can make a big difference for your practice. So yes, it is worth it if that's going through your head. Even if you think you're a pretty delta heavy practice, I promise you that those smaller insurances that may seem more insignificant, it adds up really fast. And this is essentially revenue sitting on the table. You just got to kind of clean some things up to actually take advantage of it. And again, these are annual revenue increases. So just some results for some of our clients that they've seen. For Dr. Morgan in North Carolina, he had 5 negotiated PPO contracts, 2 optimizations, and he saw a $64,000 revenue increase. For Dr. Baker in Texas, we negotiated 5 PPO contracts, optimized 3 PPOs, and he saw a $79,000 increase. And for Dr. Young in Florida, he had 7 negotiated PPO contracts, 4 optimizations, and his revenue increase was $100,000. So again, really great results. We know this framework works. And if you're wanting to even start this process alone with negotiations, even with that, you're going to see an increase in your revenue. So just to review what we covered, we've gone through these 3 key strategies to increase your PPO reimbursements. We first talked about how to understand your PPO participation and current reimbursements. That's your first step. You got to discover and map out that PPO participation. You need to make sure you have all of your current updated fee schedules and have that documented. And then you need to rank out your UCRs versus your reimbursements to make sure that if there's any UCRs that need updating or increasing, that you can get those increased before reaching out to negotiate. We then went over negotiation tactics. We talked about how to focus on the right procedures for your practice, making sure that you have ranked your top procedures and are focusing on those ones. We talked about reaching out to the PPOs and requesting an increase, and then comparing those offers to make sure that it is a true increase for your practice. And then finally, we finished off with talking about how to really maximize your negotiation opportunities. The best way to do that is by partnering with us, Unitas Dental, to make sure that your fees are competitive for your area, to then look into optimization to really take it a step further, and to really get the highest return on investment that you can. So I'm sure you're feeling a little bit like this right now, right? Fire hose in the mouth, information overload. I know it's a lot, but again, that's why we wanted to provide you with this PPO negotiation quick start guide. Head to www.ppoguide.com. Again, that's www.ppoguide.com for a step-by-step breakdown of this exact PPO negotiation framework that we've covered today. It'll have it in detail, different instructions and tips for you to help you start this process. Again, if you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or drop them in that Q&A. So now what's going to happen after you finish our webinar today, right? You're going to go back to your daily life, your daily work life, treating patients, scheduling appointments. I know you're all super, super busy, and dealing with insurance company is probably the part of your job that you don't love and that you maybe didn't suspect would be such a big part of the job. But your practice needs higher PPO reimbursements ASAP. And so don't wait. Don't be like the chickens that go to a meeting and learn how to fly and then walk home. We need to get you higher reimbursements as soon as possible. And so I'm going to make you an exclusive offer for being on this webinar so that we can get this process rolling for you faster. So I want everybody right now, before you log off of this webinar, before you leave your computer and finish the rest of your day or head to dinner, go to www.ppoguide.com/go. Again, open up a new tab, go to www.ppoguide.com/go. And it'll pull up our company's website and calendar. And I want you to find a date and time that works for you and schedule a free 30-minute consultation with one of our specialists. If you're lucky enough, you might even get me. Just kidding. But you can schedule a consultation, and then when we meet with you, we'll reach out to you at that time, and we will go over what your current insurance situation is. No, you don't have to have it as detailed as what we discussed today. You don't need to have all your fee schedules ranked and ready. You don't need to know exactly how you're participating with each insurance. We'll just want to get an idea of which ones you think that you are some way participating with. And we're going to go over our service, find what's going to be the best suit for you, and go over what your projected ROI will be. And then once you have completed that consultation, for being part of this webinar, I'm offering 3 super awesome limited time bonuses. So the first bonus that you're going to get is that PPO Provider Relations Master List. So we make hundreds of phone calls a day to PPO insurances every month. And I know there's nothing more frustrating than sitting on hold for maybe up to an hour with an insurance company and then realizing that you contacted the wrong person or the wrong department. So this will hopefully save you hours of time sitting on hold and will help you verify your status or in network participation faster by knowing exactly what number to call. So we're going to have each insurance company listed out there, as well as their contact line. This is normally a $199 value. We're giving it to you completely free. The second awesome bonus we're giving you is our e-guide. It's our 35 common insurance problems and how to avoid them. This is super, super awesome because over the past 10 years, we have compiled all of our top PPO solutions to our most commonly asked questions. We work with thousands of doctors. A lot of them have the same types of questions. So this covers anything from downcoding, balance building, out-of-network benefits, office info changes like changing your tax ID number or business name or address changes, adding an associate, and much, much more. So this is going to save you, again, hours of trying to solve these frustrating PPO related problems. I know that even if you think that you can do some of these changes yourself, it's just so nice to have a reference, to have some tips to some of these situations. So this is a $299 value we're giving to you completely free. It doesn't stop there. We're giving you another super awesome bonus, our fee schedule analysis tool. So I know I joked that you're going to be experts in Excel at the end of this, but now you don't have to. You can use the exact tool that we use to analyze our clients' UCRs and PPO fee schedules. We're going to give you that fee schedule ranking spreadsheet that we use. So that you can see if your UCR office fees are priced too low. You can compare the different reimbursements between insurances, see what your highest reimbursing PPOs are, and it's just a super easy to use online spreadsheet that we have automated formulas and calculations in. So super awesome. This is normally a $499 value. We are giving to you absolutely free. So we really are kind of giving away a little bit of our secret sauce and our tools, but we want you to be successful in this and have some things to get you started. So just to recap what you're getting that with the consultation call, you're going to have a PPO evaluation and ROI projection on the call. We're going to give you an e-guide with the 35 common insurance problems. That's a $199 value. We're giving you the PPO Provider Relations Master List, so you have all that contact information, a $299 value, and that PPO fee schedule analysis tool that is a $499 value. So the total value would be $997 that you are getting completely free, along with hours of saved time, which we know is priceless, and higher PPO reimbursement rates. So don't hesitate, head to our website, www.ppoguide.com/go. Head there right now and schedule a consultation. We'll reach out to you and we will be able to consult with you and see what we can do for your practice specifically. So it's completely free, just a great opportunity to further investigate this and answer any questions that you have. All right. Well, with all that being said, that's all the material I had today to cover. So now I will open the floor to some Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chloe. We do have some questions lined up. We've got about 20 minutes left. So if anyone does have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or Q&A.
Okay.
All
Awesome.
right. First question. I believe it's saying if my daughter or should my daughter inherit our PPO fee schedule, or should she start her own new fee schedule with an insurance company, and which would have a better fee schedule? I might not be understanding that correct.
Okay. No, that I think that is what they're asking. So that's a really good question. It kind of depends on what the situation is, but when a doctor purchases a practice, especially if they're keeping the same entity, so they're purchasing the tax ID number and entity, they usually will inherit the seller's fee schedule. So if the seller has not negotiated in a long time or the fees are really low, you definitely want to make sure that you are negotiating those before you credential with the insurance company. Again, as soon as you negotiate or credential with the insurance company, you're going to be locked into that fee schedule for 2 years before you're eligible to negotiate. So honestly, in either scenario, whether you are taking over the practice and you're planning on keeping the entity, or you're going to set up your own, I highly encourage that you reach out to negotiate beforehand. Again, it is possible to negotiate proposals before you're in network so that you can then compare and look at the different fee schedules and offers and then decide which ones you're adding or what the best way to participate is going to be. And we actually, just as a little plug, we actually do have a whole service designed for that for doctors who are doing a startup practice or who are acquiring a practice. And so I'd be more than happy to speak with you more about that. Please reach out to me or head to our website and schedule a consultation. It'll have an option to explain what dental practice type you are. Just put that you're purchasing or acquiring a new practice or doing a startup, and then we'll make sure you get paired up with the right representative. We have a whole department dedicated to that who specialize in reaching out for proposals for new providers and then completing credentialing to get them in network.
Awesome. And then if you want to throw the contact info on screen
Oh,
there.
yes. It's Chloe at Unitas Dental, and my direct line is it's 480-573-0785.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Let's see. If you are contracted with Cigna, for example, and they combine a build up with a crown, can you build the patient?
Okay, so as far as billing procedures that like aren't technically covered, it totally depends on the insurance company and it actually depends on your state's regulations. So my best recommendation would be that you call and ask what you're allowed to bill there, because it does just totally depend. And I know that's not, I wish I could give you a more thorough answer, but that really is the truth, is that it does vary. And so with what they allow you to bill the patient for things that aren't technically covered.
All right. We have a lot more questions, but I'm getting a
Okay.
lot of the same ones. So I'm going to skip a
Okay.
little ahead here.
Okay.
So how does Unitas charge? So how do you charge for your services? How do you set the fees for services that you provide? Anything you can provide?
Okay, great question. So pricing we will go over on the consultation call. It really does depend on kind of one, what service you're a fit for, and that's based on kind of your office's current situation. But most of our services are all inclusive. So you don't just pay for a la carte negotiations or for, for us just to negotiate with one particular company. It's just a flat rate, and we cover all of your negotiations and optimization, and kind of whatever needs to be done for your practice. But again, we have a different couple services depending on what your situation is. So the best way to get the most accurate pricing for your office would to be schedule a consultation call, and then we can go through that with you.
All right. The next most common question, if not the most common, that we get every single webinar:
Okay.
why does Delta not negotiate?
Yes. Okay. I was expecting this question. It is asked every single webinar, and it's asked by every doctor I talk to personally. So Delta historically, yes, they do not negotiate with individual providers or with third-party companies. So we've continually attempted negotiations and have tried to make inroads with them, but at this point in time, we really haven't seen them come to the table. I believe they have such a stronghold in every single state. They're by far the largest insurance company. So many large employers offer Delta as benefits to their employees. So I think they know they have, providers in that stronghold. Every doctor is in network with Delta pretty much, and they are way too scared to go out of network with them because they don't want to lose the patients. And so Delta holds that against the providers, and they know that they're going to stay in network because they just have way too many patients, and they don't negotiate the fees. So Delta's a really tough one. And then additionally, what makes them very difficult to work with is, like I mentioned, a lot of these other insurances have other avenues to getting a higher reimbursement, even if they don't negotiate, or like you don't get an increase for them, or it's really minimal. You can put them in network through another insurance company, but Delta doesn't network with the other insurances. You have to be directly contracted with them in order to be considered in network. Now, all of that being said, there is one thing that you can evaluate with Delta, and that is if you're eligible to be a Delta Premier provider. So in general, across the board, most specialists, for whatever reason, pediatric dentists, Delta doesn't consider them a specialist, but for oral surgeons, periodontists, endodontists, ortho, actually, I think for some states, even ortho's not included, but there will always be a network. If you're in network with Delta and you're a specialist, you're going to cover all Delta patients and get paid on the premier fees, which are higher. For general practitioners, Delta pretty much now makes everyone be in contract with PPO and Premier, but you will always get paid on the lower PPO fees, even if it's a Premier patient that you're treating. I don't know why they do that, but that's just how it is for Delta. But for some states, you are eligible to, as a general practitioner, drop Delta PPO and be Premier only. So that way, when Premier patients come in, you do get paid the higher Premier fee. That being said, you do have to remember that that technically would mean that you're now out of network with Delta PPO. You'd only cover PPO patients who have Premier benefits and Premier patients. So for some states, they still allow you to do that. It doesn't matter how long you've been contracted, but for a lot of states like New York, California, they have stipulations. You have to have been contracted for a certain amount of time, and then they say that you're like grandfathered in to Delta. So for California, you have to add your contract prior to 2014. I think for New York, it's 2016. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to double check, but it is based on your contracting time as well, to see if you're even eligible for that. And then for some states, they don't even give you the option anymore. It's like if you're in your PPO and Premier. So newer providers, it's tougher. For older providers or providers who have had their contract with Delta longer, I would definitely reach out to Delta Provider Relations and see if you are eligible to do the Premier only status, if that's a route you're wanting to go and look into.
Such a simple question, but yet a complex
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Sorry, I tried to elaborate on that one a little bit more.
No, you're good. More
Yeah.
information, the better.
Yes.
How can you find or generate a comparison of UCR fees for your area?
How can you find or generate a comparison of UCR fees for your area? Okay, so like I said, there's a couple different analysis tools out there. I would recommend using Henry Schein's. That's the one that we use for our clients, and it's a really great analysis, very accurate. And that is something that we do offer to our clients, but you can also get through your Henry Schein rep. So reach out to them directly and they can do that analysis for you.
What if the PPO gives you an alternate fee schedule that you find not to be satisfactory on certain codes? How do you go back to them?
Great question. Okay. Yes. So it's negotiations. So just like you negotiate anything, there's going to be that back and forth. So go back to them and be specific and say, hey, we noticed a decrease on this code or this code, or we expected more of this type of an increase, and be very specific and basically ask for a higher offer. You can also literally just say, is this the highest offer that you can give at this time? Can you go up any more? And just see what they say. I mean, it never hurts to ask. And that's why I say, even with Delta, always attempt negotiations and then always ask for more. It never hurts to ask. And a lot of times, if they're willing to negotiate with you and came back with you with one offer, there's a lot of companies that will come up with a secondary offer as well. So definitely go back to them and say the specific codes that were maybe decreased or that you thought still weren't enough to justify staying in network, and see what they can do. Because sometimes they could just up the fee on those specific codes. So yeah, absolutely go back to them and see if you can get higher.
If a doctor purchases a practice and there are patients in treatment with the selling doctor's rates, how does that work for the buyer when negotiating new fees?
Okay, so this one's also kind of a complex answer because there's a lot of misconceptions with how transitions work and how claims are processed. So, um, for if patients are in treatment and they're with the selling doctor, then they would still utilize that fee schedule. However, if a new doctor is taking over and they're now treating those patients, the claims are now going to technically process as out of network until that treating provider is in network. And on the claim, it asks who your like billing doctor is, which a lot of doctors will say, oh, I put that as the seller, but you still technically should always be putting who the treating provider is as well. And that's how the claim is processed. So if they see that you're the treating provider and you're not quite yet credentialed with that insurance company because you're trying to finalize negotiations, or maybe you did, but it's just not all effective because you're not credentialed, then the claim is going to process as out of network. But if the seller is staying there and they're the ones doing treatment, then there then it just processes on whatever fee you've currently been on. Same if you're just a current doctor. As we're renegotiating, your status doesn't change. You still bill the patients whatever your current UCR or whatever your current reimbursement is. And then when those new fees become effect, then that's when the change happens.
Can my associate be out of network even though I am in network?
Yes. Okay. So that's been another really big common question. So you can do that. There are a few companies, I think like it's Delta, I think United Healthcare, though, and then maybe one other, but definitely Delta, in which they do require the owner doctor, the owner of the entity, to be directly contracted in order to contract an associate. Oh, Emeritus is the third one. So Delta, Emeritus, and United Healthcare. Those are the three that they require the owner doctor to be contracted. But then the associate, for the associate to be a network. But all the other companies, the owner doctor could be completely out of network and you can credential the associate.
Delta is my biggest insurance provider. The few others that I have are minor players in my practice. Would your help make much of a difference?
Yes. Okay. Good question. So yes, but that's why we offer the free consultation call, because we do want this to make sense for you and make sure you're going to see an ROI from our service. So we'd want to verify what some of those other smaller insurances are and what we could realistically do with them, what we would recommend. But absolutely, in my opinion, yes, it's still 100% worth it to do the consult call, and it's usually worth it to go through our service because, like I said, even if they're more minor insurances or you don't have as many patients for your practice, um, I can guarantee you're losing more than the cost of our service in reimbursements just on those insurance companies. So it adds up really fast, like I was saying earlier, and it's like, why not get the revenue where you can, right? You don't just want to say, oh, Delta doesn't negotiate, so oh well, that's my biggest one, I'm not going to do anything. Like, no, you should address the ones that you can do things for. So again, if that means starting this negotiation process on your own, I would definitely recommend having a consultation call with us, and then we can further direct you based on your situation. So, but yeah, do what you can always.
All right, staying with Delta, does Delta still allow adding Delta Premier with higher reimbursements?
So I think I kind of answered that in my previous one because I kind of went more in depth on that. So generally, when you now contract with Delta, you are automatically going to be PPO and Premier. You're going to be with both. If you're a specialist, you're going to cover both PPO and Premier patients, and you always will get paid the Premier reimbursement rate, which is higher. But if you're a general practitioner and you've just contracted with them, you're always going to get paid the PPO rate, even if it's a Premier patient. So, so yes, you will be Premier, but you're not. If you're a new provider with Delta, there's a few states where you can still like be only Premier and get the Premier rate, but for the vast majority, they don't let new providers do that. You have to be in network with both, which means you're not going to actually get the Premier fee. You're going to get the PPO fee if you're a general practitioner.
How does it benefit the insurance companies to allow higher fees?
How does it benefit the insurance? So it benefits them because even though most practices don't know this until they really start looking into it or they work with a third-party company, they very well know that there's technically different ways you could be in network with them. That, again, except for Delta, you don't have to have a direct contract. You could go through a completely different company and give your business to them rather than go through that particular insurance. So if they're wanting to retain you as a provider, then they're going to be incentivized to give you higher reimbursements. Again, that kind of goes back to the Delta thing of why I said they're not incentivized, because they know providers aren't going to drop them. But for these smaller insurances, if they have horrible fees, the providers are going to say, okay, fine, I'm not going to be in network with you. And then they're going to drop them completely, or they're going to put them through another insurance company. So they do have that incentivization to keep their business, to have you as a provider. And so they know they got to increase the fees.
All right, we're running short on time. We have a lot of great questions. I don't think we're going to get through all of them. So if
Okay.
anyone submitted a question, we've got a couple minutes left, so we'll knock a few out. But if we don't answer yours, Chloe's email is on the screen. I highly suggest you email her and she'll get back to you
Yes.
ASAP.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have to negotiate before credentialing?
Do you have to negotiate before credentialing? No, but I highly recommend it because once you credential, you're locked into the fee schedule for 2 years. You could optimize, so you could shift how you're in network with a fee schedule or term a fee schedule or term a contract, a PPO, but you're not going to be able to get a higher increase. If you go to them and try to ask for increase, they're going to say, nope, you've only been credentialed with us for X amount of time, not long enough, come back when it's been 2 years. So I recommend before you add an insurance company, always reach out to them for a proposal and then say, is this your best offer? Can you go higher? And try to get their highest offer. Otherwise, they're going to give you their generic standard fee schedule, and it's going to be obviously the lowest rate. So I definitely recommend, but if you're if your question more so is if you're already an established practice, because I had a provider ask me this yesterday on a consultation call, I think there's a rumor circulating that you can't negotiate. You can. If it's been the 2 years, you can negotiate. So you don't have to be credentialed in order to negotiate. And if you're not, I would recommend negotiating before you credential. But also, if you've already been credentialed, it's not a lost cause. Just make sure you're eligible to renegotiate, and then you can do it. And you do it every 2 years.
All right, speed round question. Can the consult be with the operations manager or does it have to be with the doctor?
Oh, good question. Okay, it can be with what? Yes, schedule the consult, you guys. www.pposolutions.com. Yeah, it can be with the office manager or operations manager, I think is what you said. Yeah, who I recommend that it be with whoever deals with the insurance in your office is who I would recommend being on the consult call, because you're going to have the information we need to know to see if you're a good fit for the service and what we can do for you. And then you're going to be able to make the decision if we can help you and if you like our service. So double whammy if you can have whoever deals with the insurance and the doctor, but if it's just whoever deals with the insurance, that's perfect. We don't discriminate. Anyone on the call is great.
If after negotiations you feel the best option is to simply walk away, what is the process to drop participation in a PPO?
Good. So if after negotiations you say, you know what, it's still, this just isn't doing it for me, that's when we turn to the optimization, and we typically try to look at the different ways, or what I recommend office do, look at the different ways you could still remain in network. You just won't be directly contracted anymore before just completely being out of network. Usually for most doctors, when they terminate a PPO, they're in network with something else that's automatically going to pick it up anyways. So that's where we really come in. And again, I won't get in depth on that. That's something we discuss on the consultation call, of how you can pick it up through someone else. So you're still in network and can keep those patients, but you're at a completely different higher reimbursement rate. But for dropping a PPO, typically you submit a termination request. So you send a letter saying, I would like to end my contract or discontinue participating with this company, and you send it into them. And sometimes they have a specific form. Usually it's just a letter request, and then they indicate that they receive it. And for most companies, it takes 90 days to terminate your contract. So you'll be in network for another 90 days. And then as soon as that effective date hits, you're now out of network.
All right, we'll go one more question here.
Okay.
Does having more direct contracts make re-credentialing a nightmare?
Well, it is true that the more contracts you have, that means the more fee schedules you have, and that means the more re-credentialing you have to do. So yes, I would say it's obviously more work, because you're going to have to update your credentials for each insurance company. Some offices don't know. So every couple years, usually, insurance company requires the doctor to essentially re-credential with them in order to stay in network. And if you don't complete the re-credentialing in a certain amount of time, then they'll all of a sudden drop you and you won't be in network anymore. So they send your office notification plenty of time before that happens, but they'll just say, hey, you're due for re-credentialing, and then you need to complete those applications. Again, that's something our company also covers and includes in our service. So as we are also renegotiating your contracts, we make sure we cover any re-credentialing if that comes due and you get those notifications. Send it over to us and we'll do it for you. And then just to quickly branch off on that, a lot of doctors ask me if re-credentialing and renegotiations like affect each other. No, they do not. You can, if you re-credential, that doesn't mean, oh, because I re-credentialed, I'm waiting that 2 years to renegotiate. It's totally a different thing. So you can renegotiate and re-credential at the same time or right next to each other. They're totally different things.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chloe, for jumping in here at the 11th hour. Certainly
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you all so much again for your time. I really appreciate it. Please, again, head to our website, pposolutions.com, and schedule a consultation, or reach out to me, Chloe, at unitasdental.com. And I am more than happy to continue our conversation and answer any questions you have.
Yes. And we did record the webinar tonight, so we'll get that out to everyone within 1 week or so.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Adam.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks. Bye.